In-house with me today to talk about avalanches and all things avalanche, I have Brian. Brian, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Hey, Brian, what is your title and who do you work for?
I'm the Deputy Director of the Colorado Avalanche Information Center.
Excellent. And so what do you do?
Well, our organization provides weather and avalanche forecasting for all mountainous areas in Colorado from November 1st through the end of May. So we provide avalanche forecasts and weather forecasts for not only backcountry recreationalists, but we work in collaboration with the Colorado Department of Transportation to keep the state transportation corridor safe from avalanches as well.
And so the conditions have to be just right for an avalanche. What is the perfect recipe for an avalanche? I guess is kind of what I'm
Yeah,
asking.
I mean, the primary driver of what is considered avalanche terrain is slope angle. And so, the vast majority of avalanches happen on slope angles that are between 30 and 45 degrees. So you're talking, blue to double black diamond terrain at the ski area, for example. But on top of that, inclined slope, you need a snowpack that's conducive to producing avalanches. So in really simple terms, all you need is, snow on a slope between 30 and 45 degrees, and you have the potential to cause avalanches. The risk and the threat from avalanche activity goes up when you have a snowpack structure that is conducive to producing avalanches. And often we would describe that as you've got strong layers of snow over weak layers of snow deeper in the snowpack.
These are at a similar grade to like a blue run or a black diamond run. I- Is it possible that there could be an avalanche on a run, or those are pretty much taken care of? Or
Well, there's a big difference between what happens inside of a ski area and what happens in the backcountry. And the big difference is inside ski area boundaries, you've got ski patrols and really dedicated and talented snow safety teams that work really hard to reduce the threat from avalanches. And so inside the ski area boundary, these snow safety teams and ski patrol squads reduce the risk of avalanches to near zero. But it's still Mother Nature, and it's a natural environment, so you can never completely eliminate the risk. In backcountry, however, no one's doing that work for you, so the chance for triggering avalanches is much greater. And
and
that's
and
the difference between inbounds at the ski area and out of bounds is simply what side of the rope line you're on. So they're working to reduce the threat from avalanches inside the ski area boundary. As soon as you leave the ski area boundary, you are in the backcountry.
and so you're definitely at a higher risk in a backcountry because nobody's maintaining it. But how do you know if you're in if you go out of bounds and you don't know it? How would you know what to look for? I guess in terms of looking for an avalanche, how would I find what
Yeah, I
I'm
mean, so the most important thing is, one, I shouldn't happen in the backcountry by accident. And so, if you're leaving the ski area boundaries, those are usually through very clearly demarcated exit gates where you're leaving the backcountry, like going into Fish Creek, for example, in the Steamboat area. So and ducking a rope and leaving the ski area boundary puts you immediately in the backcountry. So if you're in the backcountry, you shouldn't end up there by accident. It means you've kind of either ignored or ducked a rope line or not read the signs at these exit gates. If you do find yourself in the backcountry, however, first and foremost that you're not in avalanche terrain unbeknownst to you, and the best thing to look for is slope angle. So if you're on slopes that look steeper than about a blue run at the ski area, you're in avalanche terrain.
Are there years that are higher risk for an avalanche? Like you said, heavy snow on top of light snow. Is that Can that be predicted, like an avalanche high risk year?
Well, it's hard to predict long term, long range. And so, what makes an avalanche year worse than previous years is the way the snowpack builds up over time. And so the snowpack builds up through subsequent storm events. And you can dig down into the snow and see a record of the weather history of a particular area by looking at the different layers in the snow. And so, much like building a building, you would like the strongest and, layers near the bottom of the snowpack, and build up from there. That's not always how Mother Nature produces a snowpack, particularly in Colorado. When we get early season snow, like what we've seen this year, it's not uncommon for that snow to become very weak when it's exposed to cold temperatures, and still very thin. And what that gives us is a weak layer of snow near the bottom of the snowpack. So then if we stack up layers on top of that are stronger, we've got a snowpack structure that's conducive to producing avalanches. And so what makes an avalanche year better or worse than previous years is how those layers build and stack up throughout the course of the season, and then the weather events that then come in, because avalanches are very much driven by weather events like big storms.
So Brian, I'm kind of curious, is there any sort of like training class or course that our viewers can sign up to take to become more aware and can kind of know what to do if there is a case of a scenario of an avalanche?
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, there's a variety of options to start getting yourself educated about avalanche and safe backcountry travel. Some of that starts with just basic like awareness courses. Of course, we're living in the time of the COVID pandemic, and so the ability to gather in large groups is severely limited. And so a lot of the training for this season is moving online. But you can find that a list of education resources on our homepage, which is colorado.gov/avalanche. And under that is an education resources page, which will point you to a lot of online awareness training and online tutorials. There's programs from the National Avalanche Center. There's the Know Before You Go program, which we are part of. You can request virtual Zoom courses through that page. Where you'd have a forecaster or an avalanche professional come on and give an awareness talk virtually, or you can watch pre-recorded avalanche education courses there. And so you can find a variety of ways to kind of dip your toe into the water and start getting initiated into avalanche education and safe backcountry travel practices. From there are more traditional avalanche education courses, which in the United States are kind of broken into levels, like level 1 and level 2. And if you're really serious about traveling in backcountry avalanche terrain, we strongly advise you take at least a level 1 recreational avalanche course. So you can find avalanche courses through our education page at the Colorado Avalanche Information Center, through avalanche.org, and through avtraining.org.
And you had mentioned in that Know Before You Go. What is that?
That is a basic awareness program that was started many years ago by the Utah Avalanche Center, and we've worked in collaboration with them over the past many years. And it's a combination of really high production quality 15-minute video, which introduces you to the concept of avalanches. And then there's presentations that supplement that video. And so, like I said, you can request a live virtual presentation this year or watch a pre-recorded presentation. And now there's also an e-learning module and platform that you can find. And you can get to that directly through our education page on our home on colorado.gov/avalanche.
I think that's so great. Thank you so much, Brian, for joining me on air this morning. I really do appreciate you taking your time.
No, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. Have a safe winter.